Why Europeans are turning their backs on EVs. Why in the world are Europeans turning their backs on EVs despite the clear environmental benefits and governmental incentives? It's a complex issue that intertwines economics, technology, and consumer behavior. In today's episode, we'll unpack the layers behind the continent's EV conundrum. Europe is at a crossroads with its ambitious environmental goals and the reality of EV adoption. The continent has seen a decline in carbon dioxide emissions, but the push for EVs is facing significant challenges. The European Union, or EU, and Britain are aiming to phase out new internal combustion engine vehicles by 2035, hoping to replace them with EVs. However, the high cost of EVs is a major barrier to achieving mass market sales. The EU and Britain's targets are lofty, aiming for nearly 80% market share for EVs, but current sales are lagging with just over 2 million EVs sold annually. This figure represents a market share of 14.4% in early 2024, which is not on track to meet the 2035 goals. Despite this, some forecasters remain optimistic, predicting sales could surge to 9 million by 2030. One solution to the high cost of EVs could be importing cheaper models from China. However, this poses a risk to European automakers, potentially threatening their survival. The EU is concerned about China's alleged illegal subsidies for EV exports, which could lead to increased import tariffs. Such a move might trigger retaliatory measures from China, affecting German interests in the country. The situation is further complicated by political factors. The upcoming EU Parliament elections in June have seen some politicians campaigning to save ICE vehicles. This reflects the tension between environmental aspirations and the economic realities of the automotive industry. In the U.S., a similar debate is unfolding. The Biden administration is considering new tariffs on Chinese EVs and batteries to protect American auto jobs. Yet this could hinder the U.S. government's climate change efforts by slowing down EV adoption. The dilemma Europe faces is balancing the need to cut carbon emissions with the economic impact on its auto industry and consumers. The high cost of EVs, the capacity of local manufacturers, competition from China, and political pressures all play a role in this complex issue. Europe's decision makers must navigate these challenges carefully to achieve their environmental goals without causing undue harm to the industry and its workers. From a personal perspective, I understand the importance of reducing emissions and combating climate change. However, I also see the difficulties many people face with the high cost of EVs. It's crucial that solutions are found that make EVs more affordable and accessible to the average person. Only then can Europe hope to meet its environmental targets and ensure a sustainable future for its citizens and the automotive industry. In Britain, the push for EVs is in full swing, with targets set to transform the automotive market. This year, EV sales should make up 22% of all car sales. The goal is to increase this percentage steadily each year, reaching a full 100% by 2035. The journey towards these targets is not without its challenges. For instance, Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares has voiced concerns over Britain's EV quotas. With EVs holding roughly 15.5% of the market, there's a gap to meet the current 22% mandate. Fines are steep for companies that exceed the ICE sales quota, amounting to £15,000 or about $19,000 per extra ICE vehicle sold. Tavares has indicated that brands like Citroën, Vauxhall, and Peugeot under Stellantis won't sell ICE cars at a loss, and this sentiment could echo throughout Europe. BMW CEO Oliver Zipse has also spoken up, suggesting changes to the 2035 ban on new ICE vehicle sales. He proposes using tax incentives to encourage CO2 emission reductions. Financial analysts have their own takes on the situation. UBS has lowered its forecast for European EV sales in 2030 from 9.6 million to 8.3 million vehicles. Jefferies predicts a rise to 8.9 million EVs, claiming a 65% market share, up from the current 16%. Schmidt Automotive Research expects EV sales in Western Europe to hit 8.4 million by 2030, which would be 60% of the market, a significant jump from the nearly 2 million sold in 2023, which was 16.9%. The EU's decision to stop sales of new ICE cars by 2035 was made with the knowledge that Chinese automakers are ahead in producing top-notch EVs. It is unclear how the market share is expected to leap from 22% to 80% in just 7 years. Critics argue that the plan may backfire, benefiting China while potentially damaging the local auto industry and not significantly impacting the climate. With an election looming, there's concern that the strategy could make personal transport a luxury only the wealthy can afford, which could have political repercussions. Charles Tennant, a British auto analyst, believes the plan will indeed disrupt the industry. From my perspective, it seems like a race against time. Automakers must innovate quickly to meet these ambitious goals. We'll need to adapt to new technologies, and governments will have to ensure the transition is smooth and equitable. It's a massive shift that requires cooperation and commitment from all parties involved. Targets set by the government for EV sales are in jeopardy. The goal was for EVs to make up 22% of sales, but now there's a slowdown. People seem to be choosing traditional cars over EVs, and this could put the ambitious 80% target for 2030 at risk. In March, only 15.2% of new cars registered in the UK were electric vehicles, and this is a drop from 16.2% the previous year. Most of these were fleet sales, which saw a 30% increase. The growth in EV sales was just 4% compared to a 20% surge in hybrid sales. The overall market grew by 10.4%. Big names in the industry like Tesla and Chinese manufacturers have seen a significant drop in sales in the first quarter. Traditional car makers are now cautious about their plans to switch entirely to electric between 2030 and 2035. Ford Motor had plans to lead Europe in banning traditional engines by 2030. Now, they're not so sure. Other companies that were quick to reject traditional engines might face challenges too. Matt Schmidt from Schmidt Automotive Research believes that zero emissions by 2035 can be achieved with better hybrid cars. These would have an EV-only range of over 60 miles. The EU is taking a break from pushing EVs before new fleet emissions targets come in next year. Changes in taxation will favor EVs over traditional cars. Big cities are planning to ban traditional engines and want taxis to be electric. Ben Nelmes, CEO of New Automotive, knows it's a big challenge to switch to EVs, but he thinks it's possible if the EU supports the plan. The future is uncertain and the targets seem hard to reach, but there is still time until 2030 and car makers can adapt quickly. So now, let's talk numbers. Currently, the EU imposes a 10% import tariff on Chinese EVs. This is significant because China is a major player in the EV market. Companies like BYD are expanding their operations in Europe, with plans to manufacture cars in Hungary. Stellantis, a major automotive company, has also shown interest in Chinese EVs. It holds a 20% stake in Leapmotor and is considering selling and possibly assembling these vehicles in Europe. The concern is not just about tariffs or bans. It's about the bigger picture of sustainability and progress. However, politics is unpredictable. The election could change the course of this plan, and if the parties against the 2035 CO2 rules gain power, they might push for compromises. Nelmes also believes that the EU is unlikely to increase tariffs on Chinese EVs. This is partly due to the economic ties between Europe and China. German investments in China are substantial, and any increase in tariffs could lead to retaliation. And this would not only affect the businesses involved, but also European consumers who are ready to switch to EVs. The journey to 2030 will be interesting to watch. Will the EV market bounce back, or will hybrids take the lead? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure, the industry is changing, and EVs are a big part of that change. So if this video is added to your knowledge, then don't forget to hit the like button, and also make sure you hit the subscribe button for more upcoming videos. And until then, stay curious and keep exploring.